Better Than Gold by Maria Testa. Every time I close my eyes, I see that sidewalk rushing up at me. But that's not the worst of it. The worst part is the wet snap. Carlos, you have a clean break of the tibia and the fibula, Dr. Marino announced. You'll live, but you won't be running for a while. Now I'm out for the rest of the track season. I was everybody's pick. I would have won the city championship in the 100-meter dash, but then, like a complete fool, I ignored Coach Gonzalez's advice. I went for a run on a city street. Sure, I was careful to keep an eye out for oncoming traffic, but I didn't count on tripping over a stupid curb. You should have heard the guys. When I showed up at a track practice, I was limping on crutches with my left leg in a cast. I wasn't a pretty sight. There goes the city championship, Washington moaned. Coach Gonzalez put an arm around my shoulders. You know, he said, you might not be able to run, but you can still make yourself useful. What good am I if I can't run? I asked. Coach smiled. This isn't the only team I coach, he said, and I sure could use your help with my other one. Interested? Now I love track. Just being around people running can lift my spirits. Sure, I said. What do I have to do? Show up here at 9 o'clock sharp on Saturday morning. You'll find out then, Coach said mysteriously. When Mom dropped me off on Saturday, the place was already crowded. Kids were warming up on the track and all over the field. I didn't recognize their team uniforms. As I crunched along, I noticed that a lot of the kids had Down syndrome. Some of them were in wheelchairs. In fact, all of them seemed to be kids with special needs. I didn't know what to think. Coach Gonzalez jogged up to me. Good to see you, Carlos, he clapped me on the back. Glad you could make it. Coach, I blurted out. I don't know anything about working with these kids. Nothing special to know, he said. This is a track meet. You know about track meets, don't you? Sure, I said. But come with me, Coach interrupted. I want you to meet someone. What could I say? I crutched after him. Carlos, I want you to meet Bruce. Bruce, this is Carlos. The kid was doing stretching exercises on the grass. He had Down syndrome. We stared at each other for a few seconds. Then Bruce jumped to his feet and stuck out his hand. How are you doing, buddy? He said. How did you hurt your leg? Oh, I was out running and I tripped on a curb. Bruce frowned. You shouldn't run on city streets, buddy, he said. Coach Gonzalez laughed. You tell me, Bruce. Listen, you guys hang out together. Okay, Bruce, make Carlos feel at home. Carlos, you help Bruce with his warm-ups. He's a sprinter, too, you know. Great, Bruce said. Come on, buddy. You can watch me run. He jogged off to the starting blocks. I looked at Coach Gonzalez. What are you waiting for, Carlito? Keep up with him, he said. So off I went, crutching furiously after Bruce. One thing I learned quickly, Bruce could really run. I mean, he definitely knew how to move around a track. As he did his warm-up sprints, he just seemed to get faster. I couldn't wait for his race to begin. Coach Gonzalez stopped by to check on us. So how's it going, guys? Having fun? I was pretty excited. Bruce is a great sprinter, I said. I think we're looking at a gold medal here. Coach said, smiling, Bruce has a different goal this year. Right, Bruce? Right, Coach, Bruce answered. Okay, guy, Coach said to Bruce. It's time to hit the starting blocks for real this time. Bruce held up his hand and gave him a high five. Good luck, Bruce, I said. Go for the gold. He waved and jogged off to the starting line. Coach, I said as we headed over to watch the race, what did you mean when you said that Bruce has a different goal this year? He just wants to finish the race, Coach explained. Last year, the sound of the starter's gun scared him so much that he never even ran. He just stood at the starting line with his hands over his ears. Wow, I whispered. It was hard to imagine, especially since Bruce was such a good runner. We watched the runners line up. Bruce looked confident as he dropped into the starting position. On your mark, get set, the starter called. He raised his gun into the air. Pow! The runners were off, all except one. Oh no, Coach said softly. Bruce was standing at the starting line with his eyes shut tight and his hands clamped over his ears. Without even thinking, I crutched into action. Bruce, I called. I moved awkwardly through the crowd. Run, Bruce, run! Bruce, run! Then I heard Coach Gonzalez's voice. Run, Bruce, run! The next thing I knew, people all around us were picking up the chant. Run, Bruce, run! Run, Bruce, run! Bruce opened his eyes. He saw the people clapping and calling his name, slowly at first, but then, gaining speed, he started to run. He sprinted across the finish line in last place, but with his arms held high over his head. The crowd was cheering wildly. I clapped Coach Gonzalez on the back. What do you think? He asked. Was it worth it? I dropped my crutches and danced on one foot. It's great, I said. No better than great. It's better than gold.